and it came about in a really strange way. So, you know, at that time, you know, really bands were signed by record companies because they played gigs. The technology wasn't there to be sitting at home. And I really didn't know how to go about doing anything. So I went in and I recorded 3 songs, and I had to kind of play everything myself. And then I had to sing myself, which I didn't really want to do. And when it came to Pure, I was writing it, and it was kind of, when I came to sing it, there was too many. I felt like it was the first time I'd ever tried to write a song entirely by myself. And when I'd written out and I'd sung it, I thought, there's too many words in this, I've done it wrong. You know, songs don't have that many words. It should be 3 words on the chorus that you repeat, and I'm just rabbiting on and rabbiting on. So I said to the engineer, you know, this one hasn't worked out, just scrap it, you know. And he said, oh, I really like it, I'm going to put it down on the DAT tape. And I was like, okay, we'll put it on there, but let's just move on to one that's proper, you know. So we moved on. And in my mind, going back to what I said earlier, that's the power of the unfinished song. I always think the power of the unheard song, the song that, you know, John wrote that we never heard, and perhaps, you know, the Doors song that never got released, you know, they just have this power. You just instantly think they'll be the best thing we've ever, you know, they'll be the best one. And Pure had this kind of really strange thing in it where it was never finished. And I sent the tape off to a guy called Dick Leahy, who I'd met when I was producing the Pale Fountains. And he was their publisher. And he was a 60s kind of bit of a rogue, big cigar, you know, had been around Scott Walker, been an A&R man at Philips in the 60s, was on the roof when the Beatles played, you know, in Savile Row. And he was, you know, he just steeped in that whole London music business kind of vibe, but in a very kind of, you know, kind of car salesman way. And, you know, he basically said to me, listen, you know, what you're doing there, you know, you're putting a lot of stuff in these songs, like Gene's Not Happening, you're writing all these things, that's songwriting. Do you write your own songs? And I was like, well, I haven't really got any songs. He said, if you ever get any, send them to me, you know. So I basically had no idea what to do with these couple of songs, so I sent them to him, you know, and I got this call a week or so later, and I remember he called me and he said, I'm sitting in my back garden, the sun's shining, I've got a glass of Chablis, and I'm playing your song, I love it, it's, you know, this is a great song, let's put it out. And I said, oh, which song? And he said, Pure. And I said, no, I've scrapped that one. It's the other 2.
You got the wrong one.
Yeah, wind on to the other 2. And he said, no, this is the one, you know. And I said, well, I didn't finish it, you know, it's not me, is it? He said, you know, let's just have a couple of 100 of them pressed up, and we'll sell them in Rough Trade shop, and we'll get a guy to take them to the radio, see if we can get some radio play. So I was like, well, you know, I didn't really have many other options, and I felt like, you know, this wasn't, you know, signing a massive record deal in a skyscraper in New York, but someone was willing to put one of my songs out there, you know, and I thought, you can't do any harm, you know. So inauspiciously, it kind of came out, and it just hung around. But eventually it just got more and more, I don't know, you know, it would be in the chart, low down, and it would go up, and then it would go down, and then they'd run out of records, and they'd phone me up and say, we've run out of record, we're going to do 100 more, you know, and they go, great, you know, we'd have 100 more made. And then gradually, like, you know, in different radio stations across the country, people in the evening shows a lot of the time, you'd have the people who were keen on music, who didn't have to play the playlists, and it started getting played by those people, and John Peel, who was one of those really on radio, whatever, it was on Radio 1 or whatever, and he could play things at night, you know, and it was the same, there was those shows all around, and they just started picking up all these plays and just didn't go away, and then we'd have a few more pressed up, and eventually we got to the point where I was told, we're going to get a play on Steve Wright in the afternoon on Radio 1. And, you know, Steve Wright was 12 million viewers. It was, you know, this is it, like, you know, it was like a big deal, you know. And it was this song that I hadn't finished, you know, and it was gathered around the radio. And sure enough, you know, you know, I'm like, wow, you know, my song's on the radio, it's on Radio 1 in the afternoon, you know, I was thrilled, you know. And then halfway through, he took it off. And I was like, oh, I knew I hadn't done it properly. I knew it wasn't too many words. I should have mixed it, you know, everything was going to it. I thought, that's it, you know. And then he said, who is this Lightning Seeds? It's great, I'm going to play it again from the beginning. And I was like, oh, blimey, you know, and that didn't really happen, you know. So then he played it again, and then he took it off and he said, I'm going to play it again. And he played it again, you know. And really, that was the moment, you know. And then all the other people at Radio BBC, you know, sort of must have thought, well, I better put this on a playlist. And it started getting played. And then, you know, they asked me they put the video on Top of the Pops. And of course, we'd only pressed up about 1,000 records. So then it ran out of records, and it, you know, and then they gradually got some more. So it never really, it just hung around, you know. And it was like, it changed my life completely, really. It legitimate. I was a songwriter. The band, the Lightning Seeds, existed, you know, it sort of, and it was quite strange because it was an unfinished song that had never been mixed, with no band, no record company, nothing really, you know, just out in the world. But it just wouldn't go away, you know.
Did you feel prepared for it? Because, you know, you then got to run. I mean, in a way, the way I look at it, and